The second thing was, Jiang Zemin was completely focused on the West. I remember one of the rare occasions in which, humble people like me could come in the presence of this august personage was in a diplomatic party in Shanghai, as a matter of fact. And there were a lot of diplomats there in the party, and for some odd reason, probably as a sense of humor, I was also invited. So I attended this party, and I found Mr. Jiang Zemin, the Indian ambassador, was there. The Russian ambassador was there. Now, India and Russia are the two largest neighbors of China. I mean, in terms of size at least, definitely the two largest neighbors of China. Both India and Russia have significant armies. Russia had not had a very friendly relationship with China, Usuri River and all. India still does not have a very friendly relationship with China. Mr. Jiang Zemin did not bother about the Indian ambassador, the Brazilian ambassador. I don't know if there was a Brazilian ambassador, I didn't really notice, but there must have been. He focused on the ambassador of Belgium, the ambassador of Denmark, the ambassador of, I think, New Zealand, or was it Australia? I can't remember. But only Western ambassadors. This thing went on for about 3 hours. I used to keep looking at Mr. Jiang Zemin. I mean, as there's nothing else to look at because the food was all non-vegetarian. I couldn't eat anything, being a vegetarian. So I couldn't look at my plate. All I could do was look at Mr. Zemin. And only Western diplomats he used to go and meet. Nobody else. In his world, only the West counted. Everybody else could be managed if you had the West on your side. You could manage India if you had the United States on your side. You can manage some other country, you can manage the Pacific Islands if you got New Zealand on your side, and Australia on your side. You can manage the Middle East if you got France and Britain on your side. So you concentrate on these countries and that's it. And the other countries, these chaps will help you in all these countries. Those 3 hours were an illustration for me of the geopolitics of Mr. Jiang Zemin. Mr. Hu Jintao had a totally different geopolitics. He went into Latin America. He went into Africa. He went into parts of Asia. He went into all these separate and different countries. And he went in with the clear aim of challenging Europe and challenging the United States in all of these countries. Geopolitically, business-wise, commercially, soft power, any way you name it, he went with a clear strategic objective of displacing the West in these places. To a large extent, I would say, he has succeeded in many parts of Latin America, in many parts of Africa, in many parts of Asia. There's been a lot of success. Even so-called US allies like Saudi Arabia, for example, have very, very close relationships with China. Very, very close relationships that are not affected by their vote on Syria or Iran or whatever. They've got very, very close relationship. So Mr. Hu Jintao focused very actively on challenging the West, downsizing the West, and creating a situation in which the West will once again be in a situation where Asia comes on top. And on top of Asia, obviously, there's going to be China. So you have Asia as number one continent. You have China as number one in Asia. Then obviously in the global scheme of things, China is going to be the big guy and is going to displace the United States. Now, whatever you can say for the ideology or whatever it is, you have to give a lot of high marks for the dedication and for determination which he has done this kind of thing. I'd like to confess very clearly that I have excellent relations with the Chinese, with my old friends on China. They frequently invite me on Chinese Central Television. I'm frequently invited to contribute op-eds in China Daily, and I'd like to say that I value this privilege of being very close and very friendly with our great neighbors to the north. So I want to make that confession very clearly in front of Bill, whom I'm sure shares the same views as I do on China, and June also shares the same views on China. But what I'm trying to tell you is that this is since Hu Jintao's China has been a firebreak. So you have Hu Jintao and you have Vladimir Putin at the same time. Two people who want to challenge the West. And despite all the geopolitical differences, despite all the frictions of migration, despite all the other frictions that have been there between Russia and China, and remember these are frictions that date back to before the Chinese Communist Party took over power in China. There were frictions with the Soviet Communist Party during the time of Yan'an, if I may say so, in the 1930s. All that is now slowly ebbed away and is being replaced by increasing cooperation because of the centrality of the geopolitical objective of displacing the West as the dominant force on the globe. So this has brought China and Russia together, and it has specifically brought Putin's Russia, Hu Jintao's China, and I think I'm quite certain Mr. Xi Jinping's China. Of course, I hear again the same Western scholars who said Mr. Hu was a very great liberal man, saying Mr. Xi is a liberal man. Well, I'm not sure about that, because in China, I can tell you, over the last 8 or 9 years, you have created such a strong sense of Han nationalism that unless you are seen to aggressively protect the Chinese national interest, you are not going to get very far in the Politburo or wherever it is. They're going to throw you out, because the Chinese party is even more worried about losing popularity with the people than democratic parties. A democratic politician knows, okay, I get defeated this time, I come back next time. You know, I mean, in India at least. If I'm a president, I'm one-term president, but it's not the end of the world. I can start a foundation and I can make a lot of money out of that. I can do a great job. You know, I can do even better. I think, you know, President Clinton is doing a very good job of his foundation. I'd like to tell you one thing, Bill, that I'm a little suspicious of the fact that a large